Hello, friend. Carm Capriato here. Remarkable Results Radio's episode 487. You know, there's no denying that time flies so fast, and technology seems to be built to overtake the very things our expertise was just focused on. Will the new stuff stay just for a little while? There are new smartphones, it seems, released every few months. In for his third enlightening discussion on where automotive tech is heading is Joe Register.
And a lot of what we're working on right now is to figure out how an aftermarket shop is going to be able to ensure everything's working just the way it was designed before the car gets released.
Welcome, aftermarketers, to Remarkable Results Radio. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results. Hello, friend. Carm Capriato here, the Automotive Aftermarket podcast guy and the founder and host of Remarkable Results Radio. Hey, at a recent industry event, I heard from people that expressed their appreciation for the powerful content library that we have here. It has helped them open up their views and perspectives by hearing their industry peers who share their select areas of wisdom. So could you do me a favor? Share this episode. I'm confident that your friend will appreciate it. It's all about tech. Also, find all my social connections and free subscription listening apps at remarkableresults.biz/social. Hey, Remarkable Results Radio is proud to partner with NAPA Auto Care and the 2020 NAPA Expo. Hey, join NAPA, including their suppliers, industry experts, and your peers in Las Vegas, April 6th through 9th, 2020. It's where you'll discover the latest news and industry information to keep you on the cutting edge. Contact your NAPA store for the details on how to enroll. Hey, did you see the NAPA Insights magazine for the third quarter of 2019? Well, you'll see a featured article on yours truly. Thanks, NAPA, for the great profile. My guest today is Joe Register, Vice President of Emerging Technologies at AutoCare. Now, Joe has over 40 years of experience delivering progressive system solutions to companies in every channel of the automotive aftermarket. Now, you owe it to yourself to listen to Joe's two previous episodes, 381 and 442, enlightening. You know, this episode shows you that there's no hiding from technology. Adapt or fade. Those will be the rules going forward. Now, Joe reiterates standardization, immersive perception technology, ADAS, dedicated short-range communication, 5G, Re-Calibration, OE operating specs, and more. Now, I love talking with Joe Register, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. Find the show notes at remarkableresults.biz/E47 as we talk about the tech that will build a dynamic picture of the road as you drive. Joe says that technicians must continue to train because of the new tech coming ever so quickly. Now, those that learn will have great job security, and shops, you'll need to charge enough to pay for access, systems, and their people, including your communication diagnostician specialist, so that he or she can get the vehicle back into OE operating specs. How do we address this? What's our immediate and long-term goals? Modules, standards, regulations, calibrations? A lot of things are going to change. Now, the question is, where do we position ourselves within the next 10 years? Fight or fold? I know you'll fight to be at the forefront of our changing technology. Hey, Carm Capriato, Apex 2019 in the studio with Joe Register. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Carm.
A wonderful contributor to the podcast. I appreciate it. I know you have done a ton of work to prepare for Apex and for all the shop owners and all the technicians and anyone in the industry to come in and really get a glimpse of where we've been, what's going on now, and what the future of all the tech that seems to be running and controlling our lives. And, Joe, how many people are saying, no, I don't want to pay attention to that. No, that's not for me. It's never going to happen on my watch.
Right.
But you know different, don't you?
I'm afraid so, Carm. I don't think there's any hiding from technology anymore. I mean, the reality of the situation is that we kind of faced that many years ago. If you recall, engine management kind of became the first place where we saw a lot of computerization, and some folks felt, well, I just don't want to get involved in that. I don't want to learn it. So they went to kind of hide to do undercar. And then active suspension started coming out and automated braking and a whole bunch of other things. And so technology is not going to give you a quarter. You have to address it.
It's almost like you can't watch TV unless you're a geek.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't it amazing?
Well, I think sometimes the remote controls are more complicated than the engine management systems.
Oh, I know. Oh, God. Try to download an app on TV to do so. Oh, never mind. Since there's so much tech, Joe, we risk not paying attention to it. And what would you recommend a service professional does besides coming to a show and coming to all of these wonderful panels? I have to tell you, you've amassed some fabulous panels. I'll be in the studio for most of the time. I wanted to go to every one of them because I know the people on the panels. I appreciate the topics you're talking about. But I don't want to talk about news. I want to talk about solutions to the tech issue and what we as an industry need to do to embrace it and move forward.
Sure. Well, and as a matter of fact, quite a few people on our panels, I think, have been in your podcast as well.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are trying to get their heads wrapped around what connected automated vehicles mean to them and how it's going to affect their business. And, you know, there's risk to it, but there's also opportunities. And when we start taking it apart, there's really two groups of technology. There's the automation side, and that's all the sensors and control networks and the actuators. These are all the things that automate a vehicle. And then there's communication technologies. These are all the V2V and V2I and all that stuff. Really what it's talking about is, in the future, there's going to be a combination of these automation technologies and communication technologies that will build a dynamic picture of the road as you're flying down that road at 60 miles an hour. So the idea will be that as a technician, you have to be aware that if there's going to be a dependence in both of these groups of technologies. So when you release a car in 5 years from now or 8 years from now, you're going to have to make absolutely sure that all of these are working together the way they were originally designed to make sure the car is safe and operates on the road the way it was intended.
I read something in one of your bulletins on one of the panels, and the words were the world of immersive perception models.
Right.
And I looked at that and I said, man, that's pretty sexy. the power to fully automate vehicles in the near future,
right,
with immersive perception models.
That's right.
And is that the anticipation of what
that's
the computers
exactly
see?
What it is. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So what essentially perception technologies is this combination of the vehicle sensors in harmony with the communications that are coming to the vehicle from either other vehicles or infrastructure. And that's what creates this dynamic map.
What kind of processing power
is
is our vehicle going to need? How hot's it going to get? How expensive is it going to be? You know, it seems to me that the vehicle may be the most technically advanced machine we're ever going to have in our world.
There's already more lines of code in the vehicles that are released with advanced driver assistance systems than there are in fighter jets. And so you're talking about millions of lines of code. Now, the really interesting thing about this is that there's not obviously one code base. What there are all these modules. And so, that started out with maybe 20 or 30 engine management modules. And now we're getting up to like 130 modules in the vehicle. Now, everybody believes that there's going to start being a collapse of that, and they're going to be fewer, more intelligent, more complex modules. So there's going to be a consolidation. And, really what's interesting about that is the aftermarket manufacturers are going to have to adapt to that. And, a lot of times they're facing right now some pretty onerous policies from the OEs saying, you can't copy our software. We're going to encrypt it. You're not going to be able to move it to an aftermarket part. And so when you ask about solutions, one of the things that I'm very proud that we're doing from the Emerging Technologies Group is not just raising the flag, but saying, what can we do in order to be able to make sure the aftermarket is not just surviving, but thriving in this environment.
So are you getting things done? Are you coming up with solutions and standards?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And so we started with the communications piece because everybody was very concerned about the concept of extended vehicle, which essentially was everything goes through the vehicle manufacturer's back end before you can get it.
Yeah.
So we've been working on ways to be able to provide safe, secure, standardized and direct access to the vehicle. And so we had 3 standards that we've been working on in ISO and just 18 months ago or so. And we've already got 2 of them published. And the third one is going to be published by April of next year.
Was that an act of God?
Well, it feels like it. I think most people usually describe, the rate of change in a standards group as glacial. Wow. So to get that done in that period of time.
In 18 months. Can you tell me what they were?
Yeah, sure. So there's one standard that talks directly about the encryption of information coming over, from the vehicle. And that uses these keys. And it's very similar to what you use to access your bank account.
Okay.
So it's called PKI, which is public encryption. Then there's digital certificates, and this is all about authentication and authorization. So these standards now are available, and we're working in Europe as well as in the U.S. to get these baked into the requirements for communication. So if you're going to attach to the infrastructure, you have to use these standards. So we had a bit of a coup just a few weeks ago in the ISO TC204 committee. It's about a 500-person committee, and it participates globally. They have adopted this one standard on the security as the way to secure all ITS communications in the future. And any work group who wants to
play in the sandbox
has to use this standard. Now, the beauty of this is that this addresses directly the issue of security without having to wrapper a vehicle and push all the information directly to the OE. So it's a standardized method of getting access.
Oh.
Even more exciting is we've come up with a little proof of concept app. So if you come by the booth, we're at 31021.
Okay.
And we can show you a prototype that actually is a little smartphone app. And you can authenticate yourself as the owner of the vehicle. And the repair facility authenticates itself as someone that can do the work. And then you can actually decide where your data is going to go using these standards.
Interesting. So I authenticate me as the owner.
Right.
And then I go to a shop. How do I vet that shop? Because I know that he is really good. I mean, I'm a shop. I'm not registered. I'm not licensed in certain states. I mean, you just opened up a can of worms in my mind.
Well, I think that the can of worms is already there, and we haven't necessarily identified it.
I'm sorry,
before.
you're right. You're right.
I think at the end of the day, there's 2 pieces to this, Carmen, and one of them is the technologies. So you kind of have to know how to do this before you can, start thinking about how you're going to do it from a policy and a governance perspective. So there's 2 pieces here. The technology's now been addressed. Now we have to start working on the policy and governance side that says who's going to control this access, who's going to be able to authenticate and authorize this.
This app isn't live now. You're just going to...
It's a proof of concept.
A proof of... All right, so you're really going to say is we think we may have figured this out. Mm-hmm. Now, underneath both of these, authorizing me as the owner, authorizing the shop as the preferred vendor, there's got to be a lot of heavy work done under the covers. And boy, if that's a 500-person committee, it'll never get figured out.
Well, no, the ISO won't be doing that. This is something that has to be done at in Europe, it's a regulatory level because they're much more regulatory, supportive. In the U.S., what we intend to do is bring much of what we develop in Europe over to the U.S. But again, these certificate groups are very similar to what the DOT came up with a few years ago. And it's certificate management groups.
Wow. Can you imagine walking over the ocean with the European standard and then say, from sea to shining sea, where's that regulatory?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to feel very different. It's going to look very different, but under the covers, it should be very similar in the way that it actually works. So we have a certificate management authority right here in the booth that's working with us, ISS, and they're the ones actually working with Chrysler right now to give access. Chrysler's managing this process internally. They're judge and jury about who gets access to what. What we're really talking about is something very similar, but moving it to an independent third party.
The impact of this, Joe, 5 years, 10 years?
This feels to me like it's about a 3-year horizon, Carm. And what we have to do is start baking the standards in, because keep in mind, there is a development curve, right? So the OEs, if we got this baked into standards tomorrow, it's going to take a couple of years to actually have it in place. So one of the things that we've done is we've been working on a retrofit device that can actually go on those cars that still have all the information flowing through an OBD. So you could retrofit that as well.
Really?
Now, keep in mind, AutoCare is an association representing all the different players in the aftermarket, so we don't actually create or sell any of these apps. This is to empower people to come up with these applications.
Hey, it's Carm here, talking to you about what the NAPA AutoCare Center program can do for your business. Now, you probably already know the NAPA brand is the most recognized and trusted name in the automotive aftermarket industry. In fact, studies show that 95% of consumers recognize NAPA and associate it with quality parts, service, and technical expertise. So why not complete a Pro Image upgrade and take advantage of that? Pro Image is a co-branding program for the exterior and interior of your shop. On the outside, it includes the NAPA colors and distinctive NAPA signage. While the public may know you as a reliable, locally owned business, a Pro Image upgrade helps set your shop apart from the competition even further. It's also a visual signal to customers and potential customers that you and NAPA are partners. Most importantly, Pro Image really works. This co-branding opportunity has helped NAPA AutoCare centers across the country increase their car counts and sales. In fact, those that have completed a Pro Image project enjoy an average 23% sales increase during the first year. Pro Image upgrades are also available for the interior of your shop. A Pro Image interior upgrade transforms your customer waiting area from merely utilitarian to warm and welcoming. The goal is to maintain your shop's independent identity while enhancing the customer's experience. You can get a free look at what a Pro Image exterior and interior upgrade could look like by visiting the NAPA AutoCare members site and clicking on the NAPA Pro Image link under the NAPA Pro Image tab. Or contact your local NAPA Auto Parts store. Your servicing NAPA store can tell you more about Pro Image, plus the hundreds of other reasons to become part of the NAPA AutoCare family, the largest network of independent automotive repair shops in the country. Joe, is it tough for you to be an association and be so engaged and involved in these standards with ISO and realizing that the work you may do may never see the light of day down over here where the working people are?
Well, we try not to think about that. But you know, I think from a practical perspective, what we're saying is, look, the risk in just allowing things to go the way they were headed is so great, of being cut out of the picture and not being able to get access to the information that's absolutely necessary to repair the car. So if you were at breakfast this morning, you got a chance to hear a little bit about that discussion and saying, no, you got to get the data. You got to have access to the data.
And I was at breakfast, and I did hear the story. I have interviewed Paul and I have interviewed Bill on those identical subjects. In fact, we are going to interview Paul McCarthy and Bill Hanvey here yet this week at Apex and get ourselves an update. Joe, put your thinking cap on and something that's probably closer it is reality today, ADAS calibrations. What's the buzz? What are you hearing? I know you're doing a lot at the in the show booth on emerging tech. What's the message to the industry today from your perspective on ADAS?
So right now, it's kind of the Wild West with ADAS. I mean, all the manufacturers are doing their own thing. They're coming up with their own targets and their own process and their own procedures and et cetera. And some of them are much better than others. I mean, some of them look like they were almost afterthoughts, and some people jotted down some notes about what to do.
Yeah, they call them the rinky-dink target.
Yeah. So I think, from our end, we want to get some standardization in place that says, look, if you're different, why are you different? I mean, why are you really, is this a value add? Are you doing something differently that really provides value to the consumer and the car and the process? Or is it just different because you just didn't pay any attention to what the best practices are? And to get some best practices baked into some standards so that you don't have to, what kind of car is this now? Now I got to think about it a completely different way of going about, the calibration exercise. And so we have Hunter Engineering. We have Ryan Frisch, who's the lead engineer from Hunter, that's leading this work group. And, we have not just Hunter, but some of their competitors and other folks that are participating on the work group to do this standardization. One other plug I'll throw in here is that this Southwest Research Institute has been very forthcoming and working with us, and they work a lot with the OEs. And this group is also participating with us and helping us to be able to make this recalibration standardization as OE friendly as possible. I mean, we're not going in to
What does that mean?
What that means essentially is the fact that they're used to speaking the OE's language. I mean, they're working with OE engineers on a daily basis and helping to develop things. So one of the things that, happens here is that the OEs naturally trust engineers that they've been working with over time. And they're used to referring to particular kinds of processes a certain way and all the rest. You'd be surprised how difficult it is to just get the nomenclature consistent when you're trying to bring concepts together. And so having somebody to do that interpretation and work through that process with us is very important. A friendly face, so to speak, so that the OE doesn't feel like we're trying to do something to them instead of doing something with them.
That's a great strategy.
Thank you.
A great strategy. I like that. They're a well-known, respected company.
They are. Yeah, Southwest is great. I mean, they've got 2,500 engineers, and about 1,200 of them are in automotive. Now, they do aerospace and healthcare and a whole bunch of other things, but they're very talented people.
Just go on their website. You'll be very impressed.
Yeah.
5G. I know it's rolling out. I know they're trying to sell phones and talk it up. Is that really going to help catapult what we're doing in this, vehicle-to-vehicle communication? Is it necessary, and will it have the kind of impact that they say?
There certainly has been a lot of talk about manufacturers saying that DSRC is not something they feel that they wanted to invest.
Dedicated short-range communications.
Yeah, very good.
I just wanted to help. You taught me that, buddy. It was you who said, Carm, here's that acronym you need to know.
Well, it's all of the ITS infrastructure that's out there. And in fact, there's a very robust infrastructure here in Las Vegas. They have about 100 roadside units. And one of our demos actually connects to them and shows how to use it. But these are all the digital short-range communication pieces. The work that we're doing with standards, Carm, is agnostic about which particular kind of communication layer you want to have. So it works just as effectively with, cellular networks as it does with, DSRC. The manufacturers are the ones that are pushing this. And I think that a lot of the reason for it is the fact that they have a very close relationship with a lot of these companies that make the chips for the 5G and so forth. Now, quite frankly, they stopped an initiative in Europe strictly because of their concerns about that technology. We don't care. We just want them to settle it, and we want to have a consistency.
Are you saying that the car is going to be smart enough to know if it's C V to X or if it's like these roadside infrastructures? I mean, is it going to be able to switch on and off and learn from the signal?
Could. Now, that's an initiative that's going on right now, hybrid communications, which means you can be able to switch and have, let's say, ITS coming over DSRC and having, B2B coming over a cellular connection. It's certainly possible.
Is this just getting too complicated and too layered and too three-headed monster-ish?
From a standpoint, if you think about it on your phone, right? You have Bluetooth on your phone. You have Wi-Fi on your phone. Yeah. You have cellular on your phone. Yeah. So really, it's not as complicated as it may sound. Right. But at the end of the day, these cities have put in a tremendous amount of equipment that's using DSRC. My guess is they're not going to change to something else, have to retrofit all those devices. I mean, Manhattan already has over 500 roadside units, and they're headed to 1,000. Okay. That's a lot of retrofit.
So, each vehicle manufacturer that's going to put in any kind of tech that's going to communicate in all forms has to be sure that their code, their antennas, their receivers, their transmitters can handle everything.
And this is kind of back to where we started, which is as an aftermarket shop. Now, think about it this way. A car comes in, maybe there was some fender bender damage, right? So maybe the body shop, they made the repairs and they kind of straightened the sensing devices the best they could or replaced them with new brackets and so forth. Now it comes into a shop to actually either theirs or another shop to do all the calibration. So once you get to the point where both the communication and these onboard sensors have to be aligned perfectly in order to get the information externally as well as internally and have a perfect picture of the road going forward. How are you going to test for that when you release the car? And a lot of what we're working on right now is to figure out how an aftermarket shop, or any shop for that matter, is going to be able to ensure everything's working just the way it was designed before the car gets released.
Okay, so we're going to have a diagnostician communication network specialist on board. I mean, and
it's
to
getting
me,
complex.
The job security of knowing and learning and staying up to speed as a technician today is going to almost ensure and guarantee you a job. And as long as we can pay that person enough money to stay on staff and continue to learn, we've got to get paid for all the stuff that we know and do in the aftermarket shops.
Absolutely, Carmen. I mean, look at, again, this is back to the opportunity side, which is a normal wheel alignment might cost you $150. A safety alignment with all the ADAS recalibration and so forth, $1,000. Now, that's an opportunity as well as a risk. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a risk. If you do know what you're doing and you're one of the shops that's completely outfitted and you're trained and you're ready to go, there's some nice opportunity there as well.
So don't walk away from any kind of training. Don't
take as much as you can.
And get to Apex. If you're not here, if you didn't come this year in 2019, now that it is public, what's so exciting that Apex announced this morning is Repair Shop Headquarters.
Very exciting.
They're going to dedicate the lower half of Sands to it. I just got some detail about it. It's so exciting. And obviously you'll have your work cut out for you to be part of that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I mean, we're very excited about the fact that they're really making, it's going to emphasize the repair side of this, because that's so important going forward.
It's critical.
Right? Oh, yeah.
It is like the single most critical part of our industry. Our technicians, our shop owners, the people that are in the face of the customer and need to provide safe and reliable repairs, so that, we continue to drive Susie to, dance recital and Johnny to soccer.
The OEs don't have enough bays anyway.
No,
I mean, there's no way they can do all this work. And the reality is that if we're not trained, if we're not equipped, if we don't have all this figured out in the very near future, then cars may not be properly released.
I am so confident that our industry will meet the call.
We always have.
Do what they have to do. And again, I think the separation of, the guys that are going to continue and the ladies, the guys and gals are going to continue to own shops and be in the business. The separation, if you will, the oil and vinegar is going to start to separate.
Well, that's right. I mean, I've been in the business for a while, and I remember when the OBD port first came out, and people were wringing their hands and running around. I mean, it was points, condenser, distributor cap, right? I mean, that was pretty much your entire.
Here was the word. I'll give you the word. Arg.
So this OBD port starts coming out. You start getting diagnostic information, and people were like, "Oh no, we'll never keep up." I mean, we handled it. We got involved in it. We've come out with the right tools and the right training. We will address all this. I think everybody just needs to understand that we can't approach it maybe the way we have in the past. We have to work at a standards level. We have to get the right kind of, acumen.
We're not going to stumble through it this time.
No, we have to be much, much better and much more sophisticated.
And on purpose and serious and committed with a good strategic plan and knowing what you're doing and good. Hey, thanks for being here.
Always my pleasure.
I just learned so much. You just have a wealth of knowledge, Joe Register. Thanks again for stopping by.
I appreciate the invitation, Carm. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier Automotive Aftermarket podcast. Until next time.